All right, let's talk about bone. It is a kind of connective tissue. It connects the various parts of your body, making a skeleton. Kind of cool. All bones, all of the individual bones in your body, are actually sandwiches made up of two different types of bone. So you can see here, this is a cross section. This is the head of the femur, that's your thigh bone. And this is your hip, the acetabulum of your pelvis. And you can see, especially here, you can see this thick layer of what looks like solid bone, and then inside it kind of looks like a sponge. And all of your bones are made like that. So the outside layer is called compact or cortical bone. And it looks really solid. It's very hard. It is not, in fact, completely solid. It has cells in it. It has blood vessels running through it. It's really complex and super cool. We're going to learn a lot about it when we learn about the skeleton later in the semester. Now, the cancellous bone is this spongy stuff in the middle, and it is made up of strands of bone tissue that hook together and branch and create this lattice work that's very strong, but not very dense, and so it's much lighter weight. These fibers, these bone strands, are called trabeculae, and that means little beams. So it's like, think of it as like a scaffolding of little beams. Inside all these little spaces, there's bone marrow making new blood cells, red and white blood cells. Now, big long bones like this one also have, like if we were to follow this bone out all the way down, it has a big pocket in the middle with it, like a big pocket of bone marrow. So if you've ever like broken open a bone to eat the bone marrow, that's what you're eating. But there is also this bone marrow in here, okay? Just keep that in mind. This cancellous bone is really important because it makes our skeleton light enough for us to move. If our whole skeleton were compact bone, it would be too heavy for our muscles to move, and we would have to have a lot more muscles. It would totally change our physiology. And if you think about it and you're thinking, I wonder what it's like with birds, because like they fly. Do they have to have lighter weight bones? They do. And they have fewer trabeculae and bigger spaces inside their bones. Honestly, kind of creepy looking. All right, now, that was bone. Now, blood and lymph. You've heard of blood, no doubt. You may have heard of lymph, but you probably haven't. I know I hadn't. I don't know when I heard about lymph. I was definitely an adult. Anyway, you actually have two circulatory systems. You have your cardiovascular system, which moves oxygen and blood through your body, and then you have a lymphatic system. So, yeah, I know, cool, right? Nobody ever talks about the lymphatic system, and it's out here doing really important work. Now, blood transports nutrients and oxygen throughout the body. So it actually connects every part of your body to every other part of your body through the distribution of blood. It contains three parts. Erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, which carry oxygen. They pick up oxygen at the lungs and then deliver oxygen to the cells throughout the body and pick up some carbon dioxide. Most of the carbon dioxide actually travels dissolved in the plasma, which carries nutrients and waste dissolved in water. So there's all vitamins, minerals, amino acids that your cells use to make proteins, nucleotides that your cells use to make DNA and RNA, all of that stuff, and all of the wastes travel in the blood plasma and get filtered out by your kidneys to be removed from the body, except the CO2, which gets removed by the lungs. So there's the erythrocytes, the plasma, and then the leukocytes are the white blood cells. They are immune cells. They are constantly patrolling your body, looking for abnormal cells of your body that are not duplicating correctly, that could develop into cancer. They destroy those, hopefully. And then any kind of pathogen, bacteria, viruses, fungus, tiny little single-celled organisms, all kinds of things like that that could cause disease. Your leukocytes are constantly monitoring for those kinds of things and then repairing damage when it happens. So that's your vascular system, which you know about. Now, lymph collects extra fluid from around the cells. So the way that your circulatory system works, more plasma exits the blood system than is absorbed by the cells themselves. So if there wasn't another way to absorb that, your tissues would all just swell up and you would look like a watermelon. So your lymph system is there to soak up that extra fluid, carry that fluid, now called lymph, to immune tissues, including your lymph nodes and your spleen, and examine all of that fluid again for pathogens, abnormal cells, anything like that. So your lymph system is a really vital part of your immune system, okay? And so lymph and blood are both considered connective tissues, even though they're fluids. I know, it's weird. Muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is what moves the body and moves any organs that move. So the muscle cells are called muscle fibers. So you're going to see those two terms used interchangeably, muscle fibers, muscle cells. Just know that in this instant, fibers are not proteins. Like a lot of times we talk about fibers, we mean protein fibers. These are actually muscle cells filled with protein fibers. And it's the protein fibers that actually move the cells and to contract the cells to cause movement. All right, so skeletal muscle. There's 3 types of muscle tissues. Again, we're going to go over all of this when we go over the heart, the digestive system, and the muscles. The skeletal muscles are the ones that move the skeleton. So when you think about your muscles, you're thinking about skeletal muscle tissue. The cells are super long. In fact, you can't even see the end of these 2 cells. They have multiple nuclei, which is kind of weird. Each cell has many nuclei, and they're striped, and we say it's striated because the proteins in here are organized in such a way that there are these gaps, not actual gaps, but spaces where there are fewer proteins and spaces when there are more. And then the size of these stripes change as the muscle fiber contracts and relaxes. Next up, there are smooth muscle tissue, and this is found in the walls of blood vessels, in the walls of your digestive system. This is not muscle that you can control voluntarily. This is your brain is taking care of this, or the nervous system within your digestive system. Yes, it has its own nervous system, independent of your brain. It can just go on. Your brain's not doing anything. Your digestive system is like, whatever, we never listen to them anyway. You have another nervous system controlling the muscles in your digestive system. And that is really important for moving the food along in your digestive system and for smushing the food up so that it gets into smaller pieces so that it can be broken down more. So the cells, each individual cell is short and kind of tapered on the ends. Each one has only one really distinct nucleus. You can see this cell here, there. And again, involuntary. You do not control this. Your brain controls this, or other nervous system. Cardiac muscle is found only in the heart, and it contracts to make the heart beat. And it is striated like skeletal muscle, but it also has these bigger and longer stripes, thicker stripes between cells. So cardiac muscle cells are branched, whereas neither of the others are. They are striated. Each cell has one nucleus. I managed to get a sample where you can't see the nucleus. And this cardiac muscle tissue is found only in the heart. Now, do not call this cardiac tissue. This is cardiac muscle tissue. Your heart is not just muscle. There's also connective tissue. There's nervous tissue. There's epithelial tissue, right? You got everything, all right? So this is cardiac muscle tissue. Always call it by its full name. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are the 3 different types of muscles. Now, in the next section, we're going to get into some nervous tissue and maybe actually, let's just do nervous tissue now. It's pretty fast. Okay. Nervous tissue makes up your nervous system, your brain, your spinal cord, all of your nerves, all the receptors in your organs, in your skin that tell your brain what's happening. All of that is nervous tissue. very, very specialized cells that we only see in nervous tissue. And they are specialized in a way that they send signals to other cells using electricity. So the neurons are the primary cells. They're the ones that actually send the electrical impulses, and those impulses are called action potentials. I know it's a weird name. Just learn it, please. We'll talk later about what an action potential is, and it'll make a little more sense, but not completely. So these big, weird-shaped things, these are the neurons, okay? And you can see that they've got lots of little branches coming out of them. Look at this one. It's got tons of little branches coming out of it. Those are parts of the neuron that can receive a signal from the branch of another cell, or receive a signal like you might have a neuron within the skin. It's got little receptors that reach to the surface of the skin. Okay, so yeah, look at this one. You can see all those little branches. Now, all of these little dots out here, okay, those are glial cells, also called neuroglia. And there are several different types of glial cells, which we'll learn when we get to the nervous system. Right now, you just need to know that they're glial cells. Notice that they are tiny, itty-bitty, teensy-tiny compared to the size of a neuron. Okay? And in fact, because they're so tiny, because they have so much work to do, there are 9 times as many glial cells as neurons in your brain and your nervous system, which is where the myth of you only use 10% of your brain came from. You don't only use 10% of your brain. You use your whole brain. If you used 10% of your brain, we would call you brain dead. Okay? You wouldn't be alive. You use your whole brain, all 100% of it. 10% of the cells in your brain are neurons. Okay? The other 90% are glial cells, but they're not doing nothing. They're still working. Okay? They're still doing stuff. So you don't have like 90% untapped potential. You have a brain that can learn, just like everybody else. I hate that. Okay. All right. I'm going to end there now, and then we'll talk about epithelial tissue. Nervous tissue is cool.